What's up, everyone? So today we have a question from 556 NATO 420, which is a pretty awesome screen name. He says, hypothetically speaking, if one was to order some product off the Darknet for personal use, is there a weight/amount one should stick to? I often see people say, never do more than 14 to limit personal risk. Really doesn't matter. You've already crossed that threshold of, ordering off the Darknet. And now you have a parcel that's, come through multiple states. So you're pretty much screwed. Anyways, like this is given, like they have like your transactions or they can prove that you did it. Like maybe you bought it. Maybe you use Coinbase and, bought your product directly, from Coinbase, sent it to a known Darknet market wallet, and now they're aware that you bought it, and they did a controlled delivery, and you signed for the package, and like you're just screwed. In your situation, that's basically what would have to happen. And the reason I say that is because in order for them to tie you to the product, there has to be some kind of connection in between. I can't go and order, 10 pounds of weed to your house or, an ounce of coke or whatever, and give you, a federal case just by doing that. They have to be able to prove that you actually ordered it. And that kind of acceptance of responsibility is something that does happen when you sign for a package, which is why no Darknet vendors that, are worth a grain of salt are going to require signature when shipping. So if you do have a package and it's your Darknet, market order, and there is a signature required, walk away. If you get a love letter in the mail that says, hey, listen, we got your package, come on down and pick it up, shred it and don't do that. If you go down to the post office and let's say you're in a small town and they recognize you and, hey, Bill, we got your package right here. Don't you want it? That's not mine. I didn't order anything, Tom. You know what I mean? Like, leave me alone. That's kind of the, that's the only real way that they're going to be able to tie you, aside from things like those financial transactions, which, will hit you every time. And that's why, I'm so adamant on staying away from just, exchanges that have, are in almost every affidavit that I go through for my podcast, Darknet Demystified. Like almost every case that I've looked at so far, somewhere they've had Coinbase, and Coinbase is like, yeah, he did this, and this is what he did when he did it. And like, that's, I mean, there obviously there are other exchanges that are definitely going to cooperate with the feds. But you really don't, there's no real need to, jump on these, super well-known cooperating, because you have to keep in mind when you do a transaction, let's say you do that and you're like, I'm only going to buy 13 grams every time. Like if you can find a vendor that even does that. But like, let's say that's how you do it. You structure it like that, right? Now you do it and you're doing it through Coinbase or, and you're ordering this and it's coming in. Now you do, say you buy a half ounce of weed every other week, that 14 grams. Now at the end of the year, say there's a controlled delivery, whatever, you get busted, because you didn't have good OPSEC, you know what you're doing initially. Then what's going to happen is when the feds grab your information and they check and they see, okay, like he's got a Coinbase account. Okay. Every week he withdraws this much. Okay. Like they're going to be able to tie all that together and they're not going to charge you for that 14 grams. And that's the misconception. Anyone who tells you something like that, they have no clue what they're talking about, because the feds aren't going to charge you with that 14 grams. What they are going to do is, now that you've tied the case together for them, you've put the metaphorical ribbon on the package. What they're going to do is they're going to say, you bought this 14 grams, these 2 weeks, those 2 weeks, those 2 weeks, those 2 weeks, those two, and they're going to add up for all the length of time that they have. Now, you might not even, have a transaction history, but like when they raid you and you're in shock, the feds might be like, well, what'd you order? Was it just like some weed every now? Oh yeah, I just ordered, a half ounce every week, man, just personal use. oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, we get it, pal, and that's your undoing, because now when comes court time, that Fed's gonna write an affidavit saying, yeah, like you told us every day, or every 2 weeks for X amount of time, and then when they charge you, and you go for your sentencing, it might be possession with intent, and then they'll go and they'll be like, well, and I'm not saying this would happen for weed, I'm just saying in general, they're going to go and they're going to say, okay, so basically, if you had ordered, a half ounce, every 2 weeks, I mean, you're looking at, a pound, for a year, like they're probably not even going to bother with that. If they did, and they can, they absolutely can. The downfall with federal cases is like the conviction rate's 99%. And, with a lot of federal cases, like there's, the average federal sentence is something like 15 years, Now, I'm not saying you'd get 15 years for a pound. I'm just saying in general, it's not going to be a state bid where, it's 6 months or a year and there's no parole, it's not going to be a county bid where it's 3 months to 2 years. They're going to try to give you time. This is what they're doing. This is their job. So, with that said, the small amounts, would be good because they wouldn't add up too much, but it's not going to be that one package. It's going to be multiple packages, every package that you ordered. And there's, 1,000 different ways for them to extract that data. Whether it's looking at your transaction history, if like a Darknet market site's been up for a year, which would be a miracle at this point. There's been one up for a year and then they happen to get the information from it and all that kind of stuff. Those are the range of possibilities that could happen. And it's definitely not going to be, the 14 grams that you had. It's not going to be what they're after. And, they might just turn around and hit you with a conspiracy charge and try to give you 10 years, say, listen, we're going to drop the weed charge, but, you were conspiring with these criminals and then you were having packages sent domestically and you admitting that, oh man, yeah, I bought, half ounce of weed, every 2 weeks. Okay, you just admitted to a criminal conspiracy. It's not just about the product that you ordered or the weight that you ordered. Now, if you go out and, if you're ordering 80 pounds a month and you get caught, is that going to be more severe than the 14 grams? Yeah, it will be. But they'll do the same thing though. Now, that guy who got caught with the 14 grams, if he did that for 7 years and say whatever, whatever number, like let's say that adds up to 20 pounds. And then this other guy ordered 20 pounds in one shot. The first guy, they can prove that he made all these purchases over all these years. The second guy, they can only prove that he had this one transaction. At the end of the day, because the drug weight's the same, typically the sentencing is going to be around the same. If you had the same judge in the same district, which is can be a group of states or a circuit, group of states is district court with, anyway, side issue. So that depends on the judge. It depends. It depends on the judge. It depends on the state. It depends on the current political climate. You know what I mean? It depends, maybe that judge, stubbed his toe this morning or, found out his wife was cheating on him. Like all those things can, not supposed to, but they can add into your sentencing. And there's so many variables that it's ridiculous. Now, the one thing you need to understand is and I hope I was able to articulate this, in this video, is it's never going to be cut and dry. Like that one sentence, just keep it for personal use. Anyone who tells you that has absolutely no idea what they're talking about. None. Because if they want you, they will get you. Even if you don't commit any felonies, you're a law-abiding citizen. At the end of the day, a Harvard study says that, your average person commits 1 to 3 felonies a day. So if the feds want you, for whatever reason, they'll just watch you, and in time you'll do something, and it might not be, on purpose. It might, whatever, but you'll do something. and they will nail you, you know? That's what they do for a living. So I hope that answered your question, and I will see you guys in the next video.